So to describe my design mindset, I have to describe background. So I grew up in Los Angeles, parts of Los Angeles, but mostly South Central and the downtown area, MacArthur Park, where a lot of Central American immigrants migrated. My mom, a lot of Salvadorians migrated there after their civil war in the 80s, funded by the US, so it makes a very complex history of being Salvadorian American. And then for my dad, he's Ecuadorian, and from what he told me, it's the same reasons. He came here to the US because of a political protest during his first few years in college, looking for their people. Largely it was Mexican immigrants here before them, so that kind of created that I would feel different from other Hispanic kids if I was anywhere outside of Koreatown or downtown Los Angeles. You should think of a lot of the intersections that people live in every day, and if you're designing for people, you're not designing for one universal kind of person. Even if there's a problem that everybody's affected by locally, everybody has their own perspectives. So one of the biggest questions was, how do you frame design projects within systems thinking when the project scope doesn't ask you to do that, or you're limited by time or resource constraints? Systems thinking seemed very promising. It seemed like it only applied to academic research and academic to workplace environments to help designers bridge that gap, yet it wasn't ever really touching the people in the real world unless it was in a nonprofit context. I wanted to know if there was a way where you could do a little bit more community-based experience that wasn't just about seeing people for their problems. The rest of my interest was forming at, to this point, my own design work. I try to tackle the wicked problems head on within one project, and a lot of half-done projects and muddled user flows that I was looking forward to redefining within this class. But knowing was only half the battle, because I still don't know how to tone it down in practice. In week 5 and week 6, which I think were the turning points of the quarter for me, because seeing how Professor Dow integrated a lot of collective community intelligence showed me a way to consider people and the systems that they're impacted by, but being actionable. Helped relieve some of the pressure that I had with trying to come up with a solution for everything at once, because you could just leverage the collective intelligence of a group of the people that you're trying to help. I like this approach because went against everything that I had experienced at UCSD so far, because up to this point the culture at UCSD was not really helpful to my efforts at meeting new people. And I think it was, as we discussed in week 1 and 2, just part of the academic culture that limits practicing empathy and compassionate critique. The compassionate component is really missing from a lot of the critique. It's not just students, it's as well. It kind of reinforces competition, isolation, and segregation. However, this really problem of the recruitment problem, which is a thing in any group setting or collective intelligence design, is a wicked problem within itself. In week 6, time of Elaine's lecture and the AI lecture that I missed, but I ended up feeling pretty well informed about just because of my other classes, I realized that people do game the system, but to varying degrees, and that they do this to survive and meet local needs. So it's important to consider how a single agent is impacting the system, sure, but it's also important to think about how the system kind of profits off of the invisible labor of several agents, and it's usually not a fair payment for their efforts. In other classes, we've been thinking about how humans will interact with AI, and then AI will outsmart humans, but then humans will learn to outsmart AI because they're learning from the technology's efforts to outsmart people. So I think I tried to implement a lot of this technology myself in some ways. I think I was trying to design Apple shortcuts for a while, but then I realized like it doesn't really work out because you need technology to be embedded into the environment to be able to respond in a smart way, like the way that humans do. That seems simple, but for instance, like knowing when to snooze an alarm versus knowing when to set a second alarm. They're like simple tasks and you can't really code that into like technology. Suddenly I thought, if I know now what AI cannot do, how could this change if a lot of people like me knew where AI was lacking? How could we finally make a collective effort, at least in my community, to make a small but tangible change that respected Black and brown culture but still leveraged technology that is really diverse and then is used in companies to make decisions on populations that are diverse? It brought me to the idea of how we can design for productive AI misalignment by specifically participatory design, by having communities misinterpret what AI should do. I got into a speculative design lecture because after watching Elaine's lecture, I did feel validated to see someone that is Latinx in the design world engaging in decolonizing design. But I did feel like, what else can we do? What opportunities exist for more participatory engagement with the people in your system that are not you? A lot of people, even within like my own family, who have very differing perspectives than I do, even if we grew up in the same house. So ultimately, what will bring a collective win would be to work with other people. Kind of left with a more imaginative mindset and was trying to explore like that dimension, but I was feeling insecure about it because I hadn't really seen anyone claim speculative design as purely design work, and it's usually more of an artistic statement to make. Pinar's talk really cemented that for me because I think that there's a lot of space for you to care deeply about people and imagine something better for them while at the same time being able to apply it practically. So I think this is where I kind of leave off in my design development. I think the turning point for me was to consider collective intelligence, but I'm kind of glad that I came back to a more imaginative approach, and I think that that's where I would like to further, that's something that I would like to further explore. So if I were to describe it in one statement, it would be kind of like Dow and Pinar's approach to design from an Elaine and Parina's perspective. So decolonizing, but probably doing that using the same technology or outsmarting the same technology that is probably colonizing people, and to approach it in a very imaginative way, but that's still rooted in being practical in the products that we put out into the world, to kind of leave the world a better place than we found it.